Hard to believe that was 22 years ago, this edition of Turn Back Time. Of course, Bobby Valentine getting ejected from that game. Randy Marsh, the home plate umpire, tossing him. And then Orel Hershiser, the Bulldog, decides to tell him to go back out there, put on a hat, put on some sunglasses, and go back into the dugout. Bobby Valentine joining us now. And Bobby, thanks for taking a couple of minutes to be with us here on High Heat. What do you remember most about that incident 22 years ago?
I can't believe it's 22 years ago, but what I remember most is, when I was arguing with Randy, I just said, "Hey, Randy, can I get thrown out for what I'm thinking?" And he said no, and then I told him what I was thinking, and he threw me out, And it was a catcher's balk is what they called on the play. I had never heard it called before in my life. It's when you step out of the catcher's box before the ball is released from the pitcher's hand. So it'll never be called again. And, old Orel decided that that's Orel standing there. He was going to protect me from the TV cameras, And they said, "Hey, put on a hat and, put on some glasses." And then I went into the training room and I said, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. But wait a minute, let me see what's going on here." And I decided to get some of the little stickers that they had in the clubhouse. And I put them like that. And Orel said, "Go on out there. They'll never know." And, we know that $5,000 in a couple game suspension, they did know.
Yes, a $5,000 fine. They suspended you for 2 games. I can't imagine these types of shenanigans happening in the 2021 game, all in good fun, of course. But then you guys went on a little bit of a run. 4 days before this incident, of course, you guys were in the midst of an 8-game losing streak. But things changed quickly after that. You ended up going 97-66. You get the wild card. What do you think that did to kind of just give your club a boost at the time, kind of taking one for the team there?
Well, I think what it did is it proved that, leaders have to understand who's comfortable, make them uncomfortable, and then understand who's uncomfortable and make them comfortable. And we were not comfortable when Mike was arguing with the umpire and I got thrown out of the game. So we needed a little levity. I needed to see the guys smile. And when they looked down at the bench and everyone smiled, and sooner rather than later, we got a base hit to win that game. It proved that old adage to be true. We became very comfortable with each other. We were laughing together, playing together, and we made the playoffs. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you were almost like a prophet because you had predicted that the Mets would win 40 of their next 55 games, and you won exactly that. 40 of your next 55 games. It was a catcher's balk, as you mentioned, basically catcher's interference. The runner was awarded first base, and you guys were kind of off and running at that point. And I also wanted to talk to you today about the documentary that you're working on in terms of something far more important than baseball, but everything that went along with 9/11, of course, the horrific tragedy on American soil in New York at that time. Tell us more about that, Bobby.
Well, that was 20 years ago, as we well know. And, everyone was dealing with fear at the time. Everyone was very uneasy. Everyone was wondering after those horrific attacks on our country, what was going to come next. And baseball kind of allowed the healing process to begin. It's not so much different than it is now coming out of COVID, where, in April, we started the baseball season and people started to take off their masks. And now, before you know it, in September, when this documentary will be aired, we'll probably have full stadiums all across the country, and people will be getting back to normalcy. So it's going to be a spectacular documentary. We're going to be dealing with people's lives that were affected positively by baseball after their lives were affected so negatively because of the attacks.
All eyes on the city and state of New York, of course, in that first game back. And so many New Yorkers and so many Americans needed baseball, a bit of a reprieve from the horrific tragedy that happened across our nation. It is hard to believe that it was 20 years ago. It's hard to believe the costume incident was 22 years ago. And in 2002, Bobby, you won the Branch Rickey Award. And basically, it's a recognition of service above self. Oftentimes, people get into politics to serve their community and serve others. And I know that you are running for the mayor of Stamford, Connecticut. That is your hometown. Tell us a bit more about this campaign and what you're hoping to achieve.
Well, I'm hoping to achieve a win so that I could lead one of the great small cities in America out of this pandemic and lead us in the right way. You talked about public service. Without a doubt, I'm a public servant all of my life, wherever I lived, but my home was always Stamford, Connecticut. And to have the opportunity, I'm here at my sports academy, where I've, lend my expertise to making coaches better coaches, players better players. And I hope that I could step forward and be the mayor of Stamford so I can make our city a better place and maybe even the best little city in New England, if not the entire country.
Well, Bobby, if you handle your constituents and the natives and residents of Stamford, Connecticut, the way that you handle a dugout, I think you'll be very successful. Congratulations on all you've accomplished in the great game of baseball, and best of luck in your mayoral campaign there in Stamford. Thanks for taking a few minutes to be with us.